Welcome to the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffmann, Eric Johnson, episode 2. It's all about the plan. And today we're going to be talking about creating a business plan. Why should you do it? Should you do one? Is it important? We're going to tell you a little bit more about what we think about business plans in episode 2. So, Lynn, this is awesome. Episode number 2.
Episode number 2.
We
survived. We did it.
Last episode we were talking a lot about mindset, right?
Yes.
And having that mindset, and we said, that mindset of being a business owner. And I love your saying is...
You're the CEO of your own business. You don't know it, but you are the CEO.
And if we look, and I agree, I think there's a lot to be learned from big companies and what they do and the CEOs, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And one of the key things that we will find with any big organizations or successful, even not big, but just successful organizations is they have a plan.
Yes.
It's amazing. And so I know we both have strong feelings on this, but I'd like you shared a little bit before the episode about when you first started out. Did you have a plan, Lynn?
No, I didn't have a plan. I had a plan to make some money, and I had a plan to change my life circumstances at the time, but I didn't really have a full-blown plan, which I now, and as I mentioned in episode 1, I knew a lot of women that actually looked like they had business all year long, and it looked very easy and effortless, and there was always people in their pipeline, and I was kind of bewildered me. How did they do this in the beginning? Because I was jumping from client to client, listing to listing as it went, and then did eventually formulate a plan. And now I'm here with Eric trying to help you guys have a plan. I think what the worst part is not having a plan.
Oh, for sure.
I think that's the big fear, not having a plan. You need a plan to balance your life. You need a plan to feed the family. You need a plan for succession. You need a plan for so many things. So we're going to break it down a little bit today about how that would look. You are the CEO of your own business, which means that responsibility all lies with you. And one of the big parts of that job is to become the rainmaker for your business. And by that I mean you are out there prospecting, doing lead generation, looking for clients, building those relationships. And then when you get there, then what are your next steps? So I'm going to throw it back to you, and we'll back and forth about.
For sure. There's so many aspects to a business plan. And so, Lynn and we are both facilitators for some large coaching programs out there. Lynn is a Buffini facilitator. I'm a Workman Success facilitator. And so both those programs, go through business plans. And, the biggest thing for me, Lynn, I think is, like, sometimes I see these ones, they give us these business plans and they're in books. And they're pretty quite, going through it pretty intense, some of them. Right. And typically what I say to people is, if you're not going to the bank to apply for money, you don't need this truly really big book set up in a plan. I have this 11 by 17 sheet, 2 sides, that's it. I have different categories we go through. But I do want to take a quick step back and just say, the idea when you said about not having that plan, and I think what happens is a lot of agents come in and they do have an idea of what they want to do. It's just they keep it up in their head. And what I tell them in every course that I'm doing is having it written down as a plan, because if you don't have it written down, then you're at the mercy of your energy and emotions. And when I'm at the mercy of my energy and emotions, it just simply means that when I'm not feeling good, I don't do that. I'm not thinking about what I have to do. It's just, I'm not feeling good. Maybe I'm not going to work. I'm just going to shop, or I'm just going to, take a day off. And then that day becomes another day, And we don't have certain things in place. And, there's certain things that have to be done every single day. And there's also, I think, a misunderstanding with a lot of people between prospecting and marketing.
Oh, yeah.
2 different things. And so that's where the plan comes into, for me, is defining these things. As you mentioned, you're the rainmaker. You got to do how are we going to get business? What is our plan? Because it's one thing for me to say, I'm going to do an open house. I'm going to do lots of open houses. I'm going to do door knocking. I'm going to work my database. Well, when I always ask people, what does it mean to work your database? And like nobody, typically when I first work with somebody, they don't have a really set out plan. They just kind of, I think about them, I'll call them. And so then what ends up happening as I dig deeper and deeper is they're calling the same person over and over. And there's a group of people over here that are getting no calls, right?
Yeah.
So having a plan to go through all of that, and I like, you and I had a discussion about traveling in a plane. That pilot has to have a plan.
He better.
For where he wants to get to. Yeah.
He better.
Because we could say we want to go down to Cabo and have a good party, and we just get a plane and let's just head south, right? No real set plan. We just start flying. The wind keeps blowing us. Next thing you know, we're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Well,
we're nowhere even near Cabo.
That's the famous word I use. I call it drifting.
Yeah.
That's drifting, okay? I guess the first question that I would ask, or I ask any of my agents when they come in to talk to me about this is, how much money do you want to make this year? What's your goal? How much money? Give me a dollar figure, because we got to start with something. And that dollar figure is usually a gross figure, and people surprisingly usually underestimate what they're going to earn. They're usually on the very low conservative side. I like to dream a bit bigger. So they pick a number that they want to earn, and then the next question is, where is that coming from? So to Eric's point there, where is it coming from? Do you have a database or a list of relationships? Do you have tradespeople you deal with? Who do you have in your sphere or your different pillars of business, which we can go into detail on, but where's the income coming from? Can you put a name to some of that income? Can you make a plan that to get $250K this year, I need to have 10 buyers and 10 sellers, or 15 buyers, 10 sellers? What is it? What's your average commission that you make on each listing or each buy you do? Have a number, but plan it. That's the part that's missing. Nobody has a target, so they don't hit it.
And it goes back, we talked in the first episode about if we don't track it, it's hard to measure.
You can't.
Success. And for me, success, you got to define your own success.
Right.
So I don't care what you deem successful. I'm not here to say you have to make $500,000, $1 million. You can say, you know what, if I make 80,000, I feel successful. Good on you. And so as to Lynn's point is, yes, you underestimate, a lot of people do underestimate, but have this idea of here's what success looks like for me. And then my sales training says, I did Sandler sales training when I started off in sales. And one of the things was we talked about working backwards in the cookbook process. To your point,
Yes,
Lynn, was I start with here's how much I want to make. I look at what's the average commission I'm going to make.
Right.
And again, do you know what your average commission dollars are? Do you track that? Like I have a sheet that I share with my agents. I shared that with you. I showed it to you. And you're like, oh, wow. Like at the bottom, it tracks all your commissions, and it automatically calculates what your average commission percentage is, what your average commission dollars are. And so from that, I could take that and say, okay, that means if I want to make, say, 500,000 and I make this average commission, I divide that into 500,000. That's how many deals roughly I need to get.
Right.
And then you start looking at, okay, so if we're just talking listings, then I say, well, every time I go in a listing appointment, how often do I win? 1 out of 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. That tells me how many appointments I have to get. And then from there, how many phone calls, door knocking does it take to get an appointment? So that tells me how many calls I have to make. And I also think that for me, and I've seen people where they focus on, I got to make this number of calls. But for me, I look at the end result is I need appointments.
Yes.
So for
That's the
me,
goal.
when I was in sales was I need X number of appointments every week. And so you might make it in 20 calls. You might take 200 calls to do the same thing, right?
It's really funny when you're saying this. I'm thinking about Escarpment's appointment center report that we put out once a week for you guys. On there, every week it adjusts for the market and things that are happening. I think the last one said you needed 14 showings to get a sale. That was an average.
Yep.
This is the same thing we're talking about here. You need this many calls to get this many appointments. Out of those appointments, maybe you get 3 out of 4, maybe you get 2 out of 4. You should know your own hit ratio on your success rate on these things. So, and then you take that back. I wasn't as sophisticated as Eric's sheet that he had. I had an Excel spreadsheet and I had it all down. And if I lost one or circumstances changed on that one, I went and found somebody else to plug into that spot and knew how many buyers, how many sellers. I was primarily listings. So
Yep.
I knew what I had to do. I don't care how you get there. As I said, just get on the bus and use the plan and do something with it that works for you and something that you will execute and do. And I was laughing before because there was a video that on one of the Buffini tapes years and years and years ago where they interviewed the man in the street and about if they had a plan and what they would do. The one guy says, I want everybody to love me. I want everybody to like me. I want to be this and I want to be friends. And the one woman says, no, my husband has a plan. I don't need a plan. Well, that's typically what most people are like. They don't have a plan, and so they don't reach their goals. So I highly recommend you get Eric's sheet because that makes it really simple. It really,
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, and I think,
It's very simple.
thank you, appreciate that. And part of that was looking at the money aspect,
Right.
because you mentioned it, there's finances,
Right.
that sort of dreaded word, I can't
Budget.
think, like I know a number of agents when I talk to them, because we offer at our 2 brokerages, we offer business audits. So I do the business audits, and one of those questions relates to money. And the number of agents I have that say, oh, I track how much I make, but I don't want to know how much I'm spending because I'm afraid to know how much. And that's because they don't have budgets set up. And again, that's part of a business plan. And you're going to hear us say over and over in different episodes, we are going to have separate episodes on just finance,
Finances.
separate episodes on database, etc. But very often you are going to hear us say, know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. Mm-hmm. And whether it is you're thinking of starting a team, again, there'll be a podcast about that. Whether it is your finances and the money coming in, how do you divvy that up? Because you got so much money that goes to taxes, right?
Yeah,
and
it's not all yours.
How many agents spend? I remember when I first got introduced to real estate and working for the real estate lawyer, and I remember like 2 agents specifically asking me questions if we did tax law. And one agent, I kid you not, Lynn, this was like 11, 12 years ago or whatever it was, saying they owed $300,000 in taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Not unheard of.
they took the checks and said, oh, I got paid this, I'm going to spend it all, and forgot to put it aside for the government. And then when it came time to pay, okay, I don't have the money, I'll have to own, right?
That is not
That happens a lot.
It happens a lot, and especially in a time like we've just gone through these last couple of years where, you have a boom year, the 1,000-year flood, boom year. You make all this money, but you don't set any aside, and the next year, whoops, the next year is a lower, leaner year, and there's no money in the coffers to run your business anymore. So this is something in finances we'll talk about a lot more.
Yep.
And it takes a very disciplined person to pay themselves a paycheck. But that's what you got in a job. You got a paycheck, and you need to plan for these unexpected. Well, federal tax should not be unexpected, but you know what I mean. Sometimes it's a little higher than it was before. But you need to know where all your costs are and all the things are that you're doing, so you can be more prepared for that.
For sure.
Even to be partly prepared for it would be an improvement.
Yep. So let's get into some of the aspects of a business plan.
Sure.
And I know because this is something I do a lot with our agents, and there's a few things we can talk about: mission, vision, statements, whatever. For me, I look at initially I want to look at what are your core values, and who's your ideal client. And the reason I like the core values is that what am I going to stand for? What am I going to be about? Mm-hmm. And that also helps me identify the type of people I want to work with. So if I get somebody that wants, and we've all heard of these clients, I've had them, even outside of real estate. So again, sales is sales. But these clients that want you to bend the rules.
Turn yourself into a pretzel?
Yeah, and pretty much, sort of go we're just going to go that side of legal, illegal. Do these things that are maybe not quite appropriate. And if you have a certain core value that says, no, I'm not going to be that type of agent, then you don't take on that type of client.
Right.
And I think, once you understand your core values and who your ideal client is, we can also identify who we don't want to work with. Because in sales, you will always come across those people that I call them energy vampires. And these are the people that steal your energy because just dealing with them is frustrating, and it actually takes energy away from you so that you can't work with other people who are more qualified, who can make you business. And it's those nightmare clients, we'll call them.
I call them D clients, to be deleted.
I like that.
And I'm
writing that down.
So many conversations with my agents, great agents who have, as a rule, agents love to please. They're people pleasers. They want to help. They want to see their clients be successful. But these D to be deleted clients just suck the life out of them.
Yep.
The problem with a D client is if that's your only client, you're going to deal with them. Again, many agents will say, Lynn, it's my only client. I got to deal with it. It's my D. I got to deal with them. I have no choice. I can't eat if I don't deal with them. But it's going to happen anyway. It's going to end up being, they're going to be deleted anyway. You might as well start at the beginning. Start early, get rid of them if you know that you're heading down that path. But the point is, if you had a business plan, if you knew who to deal with, if you knew what you wanted to deal with, if you had some income coming in, you make a totally different business decision about dealing with that D client. But if that's the only client you've got, I've seen so many of my good agents, my good kids, work with people like this, and it's really horrible. I mean, we've had lots of tear-filled conversations on the phone.
It burns them out.
It burns them out. It makes them upset. It turns other clients away because they can't service the other clients because they're busy chasing after this D client. But yet when I tell them to delete them, get rid of them, don't talk to them, just let it go, refer them to somebody that you don't like.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what we used to say. What company don't we like?
Who don't we like? Let's refer them. But the point there is, if you don't have income, if you haven't had a plan, if you don't know where you're going, it's really hard for me to tell you to let that person go because there's nothing else. So the point is, you've got to keep tons of people in your pipeline so you always have choices. That's what all this training is about, helping you have better choices when it comes to the kind of people you can use.
Yeah, and I think, for me, what's one of the important things about defining who you want to work with is that once I understand, like you could be somebody who says, I have agents that love working with seniors. They love helping them downsize. I have people that, want to work with first-time home buyers. I have people that love those investors, right? And working with investors. I don't care who it is, but once I know who I want to work with, now I can figure out where they get their information. The one thing we encourage all of our agents to do is to provide a lot of education. Because I don't want people getting their information from other sources that aren't involved in the market on a daily basis, right? That coworker who has no clue, their friend sold something for an extraordinary amount, but they don't live in the same neighborhood, and that market over there is, acting differently than the market in this neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. But I go back to, where do they get their information? So if I was working and focusing on, say, busy executives, yes, Facebook is a great marketing tool, but are these people really spending a lot of time on Facebook? Or are they spending more time at certain clubs, organizations? Maybe they're more on LinkedIn than Facebook. Maybe it's a younger crowd and they're not on Facebook. Where are they? If you're looking at social media, they're on different channels. So when I identify who I want to work with, then I can figure out where are they? Where are they getting their information? I have one agent in Niagara-on-the-Lake that said, you know what, I noticed that everybody because he lives there, and he noticed that a lot of people all around him were retired, they were older. And what they did is they spent a lot of time down at the local coffee shop, and they actually read the local, like the Niagara-on-the-Lake newspaper. So he puts in there like a half-page ad, is consistent on that, And all of a sudden, he starts drumming up a lot of interest, a lot of people wanting home evaluations, a lot of people calling and talking to him and asking him questions. And so a lot of people say, oh, paper, Eric, like today, 2023, what are you doing? But he found that this demographic, and he has multiple people that he looks and goes after, his team goes after, but this one demographic, that's where they get a lot of their information. So that's why it's important to identify who you're going after and where are they getting their information. Yeah. And so when you put together that plan, that allows me to say, okay, and we talked about the difference between prospecting and marketing. My marketing, I want to look at what are my marketing channels? So where am I going to market? Am I going to do postcards? I'm doing mail outs. Am I doing social media? Is it a website? Am I doing bus benches, billboards? You name it. You figure out where that's going to get you the biggest impact. And from there, then we can look at things like frequency. So if I'm posting to the social media, how often do I have a calendar? Do I have that planned out? I have yearly marketing calendars, monthly marketing calendars that I give to our agents and say, plan out your themes, plan out your mini events, all the different events you're doing for marketing. What do these people want and need? Like that's, your content has to revolve around those people. And I remember a marketing course we did where we identified, it was almost like that first section was a wanted poster. We divided into 3 sections. First one was a wanted poster. Here's our ideal client. Here's their average income, household income, their age range, family size, needs, their wants, the problems that we can solve for them, and where they get their information. And we identified that, and that allowed us for our plan, not just our marketing plan, but our business plan, where we need to go.
And I'm also going to suggest to add to that, each one of us attract people that are similar to ourselves. So for example, I used to get a lot of clients that were very direct. In the disc profile, they were Ds. They just wanted bottom line results. I also used to attract a lot of engineers and more accounting style backgrounds of people.
Yep.
I did not get the arts and craft kind of person. I don't have the temperament for that. So I think if you know yourself who you are more relatable to, that will make a difference as well. And then, like Eric said, go to that place where that tribe of people is going to hang out and be relatable to that. And it makes it even much better if you're working with people who you like and who you get, who you really get. If you're a boater, you're going to the marina, you're marketing to that group of people. But go where you go. If you're not a person that wants to be real direct and just focusing on numbers, then maybe you're looking for a different style of client. Maybe that's why you're not getting along with that client. So I think you've always got to know who you attract and who you're attracted to in all of that. And the other point there you're making is a thing called ROI. So whenever you're talking about doing buses or billboards or benches, which I personally think are okay for getting your name out there, but I have yet to have anybody tell me how many deals they did specifically because of that $22,000 bus sign. Like, tell me how many deals you did, how much income you made from that. Most of them go, I don't know. People say they saw me on the bus. Okay, did they buy anything? Could you have been on the bus or off the bus? And I'm not knocking buses in general. I'm knocking the fact that we all put ads and things and do things and we have no clue as to what our return on investment is. And I think that's to your point. You need to know where you're spending your money.
Yeah.
Spend your money, but spend it wisely, and spend your time and spend that wisely with the people that are going to appreciate you the most. And we're all different.
Yeah, and I ask people all the time, how many times have you bought something because you called them up because you saw the billboard or you saw the bus? You're not making the call because of that, but it does build brand awareness.
It builds brand awareness 100%.
What you were getting to, and that's how I look at it, is brand awareness, is that then when I do show up, they're going to say, oh, you're that person on the billboard or on the bus.
Right.
And so, yeah, that helps to it. So that whole marketing thing, along with not just defining what you're going to, like where you're going to market and the frequency in that, is tracking that budget. So part of your business plan, and yes, it's the dreaded numbers, is that, and Lynn says this all the time, you can't measure what you don't track. And so it's important to have that budget, because if you're a brand new realtor, or you're somebody thinking about getting into real estate, I'm going to tell you right now, it is so easy to blow your brains out spending money in this business.
I've seen
right?
several recently, like 300 grand in the hole because of social media.
Yeah.
Like they came into the business with a war chest and spent the money the wrong way. And that is really upsetting. And then their back's up against a wall. The other thing is spouses are just wonderfully supportive until no money's coming in. Okay? What do you mean you're buying a washer dryer? What do you mean you got to go to another course? What do you mean you got to do this? It's a constant drain out of money. So that's great. You got to spend and you got to do stuff, but you need to know what you're spending on. Is it working? Is it the right thing for you?
Yep.
And then make an educated decision on that. Because I really don't think most people do. For years, everybody put ads in the Oakville Beaver. For years, it was about this thick. And everybody was afraid to take their ads out of the paper because they thought if they took them out, so it's the fear of losing out,
Yes.
the FOMO. They didn't take it out, but nobody was getting any business from it. No
Yeah.
meaningful business from it. Now the paper is like next to nothing and business
Yeah.
still carries on. So you got to know where you're spending the money.
Yeah, and so one thing I'm going to recommend when you're making up a business plan and you're looking at your budget, number one, you do want to have an overall marketing budget. You'd also want to create a listing budget. So when you go to list a home,
Yes.
what are you going to invest? And you always use those words. I'm going to invest this amount of money in marketing your home. I'm investing this much money in your home.
And staging is huge now.
All of that, staging, all of that, that's part of your budget. And then you're going to have an overall budget for your business, okay? And so you're going to want to create those budgets. And much to, like Lynn was mentioning, the spreadsheet I give to our agents, at the end, there's 5 columns for, there's a column for different bank accounts if you wanted to have separate bank accounts. But one of them being, your federal income tax, your HST, then I had your business, how much of that check goes into your business account, how much goes into your personal account that you are going to, that allows you to pay off your mortgage, all your bills, etc. And then also a marketing account. And what I say to people is if you so we say anywhere average between 10 to 20% of your gross commission goes into marketing. So I set up the default to be 15%, is that you put 15% of your gross commission into this account. And the idea is if I want to do a marketing initiative and it costs money, I got to look at my bank account and say, do I have the money in there? If I do, then I can use that. If I don't have enough money, then I don't necessarily do that initiative. You might say, well, Eric, I'm going to go for it anyways. I know I'll make it up. But that's where people get themselves in trouble. Because they get behind, right, Lynn?
Yeah, the comment is that cost me one deal. That's
Yeah.
the way the mentality goes. That's worth one deal to me. That's not really the way.
But they keep saying everything is going to cost me one deal,
Yeah.
but we haven't made those deals
Right.
yet, and now we're in the hole,
In the
10
hole.
deals.
You're right. That's where I'm going. Yes, you're exactly right. It's to be much more planned than that. So what we're both saying here is to take the peaks and the valleys out of your business. We want it nice and consistent so that you can plan for it. When you live in a condo, somebody's taking a percentage from you. So when the roof blows off, it's covered. This is basically what this business plan does for you. When something goes sideways, you've planned for it.
Yep.
You have the money where it's supposed to be. You know what you're spending. You know what you can cut back on. You know how you can shift the dollars around to make everything work for you. And you know how many sales and how many commission checks you need to have to make it all work. It's just numbers.
It
But,
truly is.
but it gives one a huge peace of mind.
Yeah, knowing here's all the
Yeah.
fees, we've got board fees, we've got
Yeah.
these fees, those fees. You got to add them all up and make sure you know that you can cover those.
Yeah.
I want to move into prospecting and lead generation, is that we need to have a plan for how we're going to approach this. And so, I'll call it, when I'm working with a database, I'll say to somebody, we need a communication marketing plan. So here's how you're going to work your database. Here's what it looks like, frequency, how often are we mailing stuff to them, how often are we calling, texting, or emailing, etc. So we want to have that all planned out. But, there's a lot of ways that people can get, like when they're looking at their business plan, I would say there are those people, Lynn, would you agree that there's a lot of people out there trying to do everything and be everything to everyone?
Yeah. And
Which is why we talk about narrowing the focus.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and there's two types of prospecting and focus you've got there. You have an immediate need. You've got an immediate need, and then you've got clients that are going to take a little bit longer. So you're hunting and farming at the same time. You need short-term things that are going to pay the bills, and you need to know where that revenue source is coming from. But then you also have clients that might take 2-3 years before they become a client. In recruiting, I've had people it's taken me 5 years to recruit them. 5 years of continually staying in touch, building the relationship, being there when they needed it. No different than in sales of a house. You're going to stay in touch with these people until their need changes. But that's not an immediate win for your budget.
Sure.
That's a long-term planning. But that should also be figured in and calculated into your business plan.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that describes a sales funnel. And
Yes,
I
it does.
remember my sales trainer talking about, the way the funnel is shaped is it narrows down to the bottom. You got this little hole. So I have all these people up at the top, and then just there's one or two that are falling out the bottom, but there's a lot of people still in there. And he said, here's what you have to always remember. I need to pay my bills and eat a month from now, 3 months from now, 2 years from now. So it's okay for those people not to buy right now, buy or sell, because they're going to fall out later on when I need deals to happen.
That's why you keep that funnel full.
Yeah,
That's why you keep your pipeline full.
And how do you keep them in the funnel? Well, you have a plan to keep them in there. And so, this is what we're talking to you about, is that it's important to have that plan around every aspect of your business. So I think having that, but not trying to be everything to everybody. So again, I go back to my focus has always been have 2 or 3 things that you're going to focus on and do them consistently and become very good at them. And then and only then do we add something else to the mix. Because once I get that consistency, so if I work my database, I do open houses, and let's say I do geofarming, right? So I'm going to go to work on a specific neighborhood. I work those 3 things. And yeah, there's a lot of other things I could do, but I'm going to focus on these 3, do them very well, and get it down to where it's a system. And that's the whole thing, I think, we haven't really talked about it, Lynn, but it's about systemizing, to be successful in business. The most successful real estate agents, the most successful businesses, period, they automate as much as they can. See, if you're going to do something more than 3 times, you need to find a way to systemize it and automate it. And so that it becomes automatic. And whether that's creating a checklist for working with buyers, another checklist for working with sellers, and then I put that into my CRM and I create an action plan and I can assign it to somebody and I automatically know every day, here's what I have to do for these active clients. Here's what I have to do for these active leads.
And we'll get into that more in your CRM discussions, because you've developed some great ways for people to stay in touch and automated, so it tells them at the beginning, much like we do too as managers. We have a sheet that can tell us what calls we're supposed to make that day and what we're supposed to do and touch on the things we're supposed to do. Life is too busy now. I mean, we're well past being able to have that in our memory and stay consistent. So that's why what Eric is talking about here is critical to keeping up and staying consistent.
And I think, one thing I want to add, because we're close to the end of this episode, but one of the extra things that I do throw in on my sheet is I'll do a SWOT analysis. So for those who aren't aware what a SWOT analysis is, it's when you look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats. But what I find is a lot of people, they've heard of SWOT, they'll do it and they go, oh, that's great. And then they do nothing with it. So part of my business plan sheet is I have the SWOT analysis, and then what we do is we look at our strengths and the opportunities that are out there, and we find how we can pair them up. So what are my strengths and my opportunity pairings? So if I have, this is my strength and there's an opportunity that I could utilize that strength in, I'm going to put them together. And I make note of that. And so that gives me an idea of how to utilize my strength, how to take advantage of an opportunity, because it's not enough just to identify it. Because if you do nothing with it, it's useless. Why spend the time? And then the other thing is we look at our weaknesses, and then from our weaknesses, there's a column that is either learn or outsource. Because if I'm not good at marketing, and I meet a lot of people go, we know a lot of the older generation are like, they're not up on some of the current technology. They don't know how to utilize it. They may not be good at social media. And so I say to them, either you learn to become good at it, or you find somebody to take that over for you, right? And you outsource it. So I think it's important to understand your strengths and weaknesses, and then how to utilize them, and make the weaknesses not a weakness anymore. So I either have to learn or outsource it. So there's a lot of components that go into doing a business plan. And whether you use our business plan that we've created as a brokerage, whether you have a coach, I encourage everybody to get a coach, right? Work with somebody, use their business plan. As long as you have a plan, because what's the saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
No, you will fail.
Yeah. And so it's important to have that plan.
If there's no plan, you will. And to your point about outsourcing things, agents, especially new ones, brand new ones, they think they have to do everything like you said. They're out there doing their social media. They're out there doing all their marketing themselves. It's not what they do. It's not what they should be doing. As a salesperson, your job is to be out there talking to people, informing the people, staying in touch with the people, and being there to take care of their needs. You're not the marketer. You're not all those other things. There is no shame in outsourcing those particular roles to somebody that knows what they do. Be a specialist in what you do. Take care of your people.
Yep.
And present yourself to people who have a need. And right now, I got to tell you, there's a lot of opportunity out there in this market right now, and a lot of opportunity to be an expert for people that need it. So doing marketing and writing sheets for your listing and doing all those other things, if you're not a whiz at that, just let somebody else do it for you.
Yep. Reach out to your managers.
Yeah.
Reach out to the people in your brokerage that can help you out.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to do not be afraid to ask for help, but make a plan, have an idea of what you want to do, where you want to go, and even on the financial side. And speaking of which, episode 3, we're going to be talking all things money and financials. So please join us on episode 3 when we get into the basics of financials. And then down the road, we're actually going to go even more in depth. And we'll go a little more in depth on the business plans in future episodes. But initially, we just want you to put a plan together. Plan to succeed, okay? Plan to succeed. Make sure that you take that CEO of your business mindset, right? That you are an owner, not an employee. And that this business relies on you having a plan to get through. And that's what you want. Because when you come to your manager, we're going to say, so what's your plan? So have a plan in mind, write it out, and feel free to reach out. And I have a business plan sheet that I will gladly share with anybody out there. But please do create a plan. Last thoughts here in this episode, Lynn.
Well, just so you know, plans change, and business plan, it is always a moving target. So don't be afraid, don't think, well, I can't. You have to dream a little bit to get the business plan in place. You have to forecast a little bit. It's not always perfect, but that's okay. Get something started, and then periodically it may need tweaking or changing, or you'll add or you'll subtract to it. But don't get paralyzed in the fear of making it perfect, because it'll never be perfect. It'll never be totally finished. It'll always be moving and changing. So just do something. Do that Nike swish.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do something. Get it started. And then when you come to talk to one of us or one of the other managers, they can help you. They can really help you if you've started to put those components together. It's not that difficult. Mindset will get you there, and consistency will get you through the finish line on these things. Okay?
Yeah, and I agree with you. You have to be fluid. And I say to everybody, your business plan is not carved in stone.
No.
Okay, because it can change. And the other thing I encourage is that every year it typically takes about 3 good months to implement. So, we are right now we are in the month of July, but I would say to everybody is that by the end of September, you should have your business plan for next year already set. That gives you 3 months to start making some changes and implementing, so that come January 1, you're implementing your brand new, your modified business plan, or your brand new one if you're just starting out. But yeah, so just keep in mind that it's not carved in stone. We can make changes, we can tweak it, and as Lynn said, just do it.
And just dream a bit. Don't be afraid to dream a bit about the numbers.
Yep.
Push yourselves to the numbers, and then work the plan backwards until you get the numbers in. So.
And just last thing I want to leave you guys with, this podcast is going out to everybody around the world. So it's available to any real estate agent.
You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Lynn.
Geez.
Yeah, I know.
Tricked me again.
Yep, that's me. So I just want you to know, even if you are not with Remax Niagara or Remax Escarpment, you want a copy of the business plan sheet I use? By all means, you can message me. Our information will be available to reach out and contact us, but love to be able to help anybody out there, but especially our Remax Niagara and our Remax Escarpment agents. We love you guys and we want to help you out. So please reach out. As I said, next episode 3, we are going to be talking financials. Okay, so please join us. Come prepared if you want to get prepared when you go into that episode, have an idea of what amount of money you're spending. Take a look at all your expenses, all the different fees you pay, and
be ready.
We look forward to seeing you in episode 3. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.